Pittsburgh, Steel City. Is everybody ready to go? Let's proclaim the greatest radio show.
Welcome, fans, to another episode of The Spread. I'm your host, Jim Sella, in studio with J-Dash, JK47, and Big Easy. We're going to talk some Steelers football, kind of just go over what they've done in the preseason. I know it was a really terrible preseason to watch if you were a Steeler fan. The only team they beat was the Green Bay Packers. They got embarrassed last night by the Carolina Panthers. They got embarrassed by the Buffalo Bills. Dash isn't real big on the preseason. He says starters aren't in there, so who gives a crap? But to me, it's a little bit of alarm because our backups just look god-awful, especially the defense. I mean, does anybody feel comfortable with this defense that we're going into the season? And I was the one who was the biggest on the defense before all this happened.
I can't remember the last time I actually felt comfortable with the Steelers' defense going into the season.
Here, let's put it this way. What was the Steelers' record last season?
11-5.
What was their record in the preseason?
Don't remember.
1-3. They were garbage last preseason.
Okay. And their defense was garbage most of the season.
No, they weren't.
Yeah, they were. Most of the season, the Steelers' defense struggled.
I mean, the offense and defense struggled early, and they both put it together through midway through the season. I mean, we'll have to see, man.
Dude, opposing quarterbacks completed 73% of their passes against the Steelers' defense this preseason for 15 touchdowns and only 1 interception.
Yeah,
they gave up 92 first downs. Opposing teams had a 40% completion rate on third down. I mean, this is pathetic.
It is pathetic, but who cares, dude? Look, how many defensive
Who
players...
Who cares? Are you kidding me? Our defense is terrible. Last game against the Panthers, the one that was on last night, a lot of starters did not play. Yeah. But in these other games, they were playing, especially on defense, because they're all young and they're not playing well. Willie Gay hasn't looked good. Cortez Allen hasn't looked good.
But those stats are for the entire game. Go look at the stats for when the starters did play. I'm sure it's not much better. I mean, they had their mistakes too, but you could tell the difference between when Shazier was in the game and when he wasn't. I mean, Shazier looked good out there at points. Shamarka Thomas looked good out there at points.
That dude can't tackle.
Harrison looked good out there at points, man.
Yeah, but I know why they weren't playing Shamarko, because he can't tackle. It's as simple as that.
He blew a couple coverages early in the preseason, though, but I agree with Dash. He did have a couple good plays there towards the end.
Moats had some good plays. I mean, all these guys had good plays, the starters, but they just weren't in the game. You got to let it play out, man. These guys aren't used to playing 4 downs and then coming out of the game. You got to let them get in there. Maybe they do have a slow start to the season. They have a tough first game against New England, so maybe it takes
a tough whole schedule.
Well, San Francisco the second week, you got to come out and play good in that game because I mean San Francisco doesn't look very good at all. So hopefully they can win that. But I mean,
I can see Kaepernick running 90 yards right through the middle of the freaking defense.
How many times have we seen the Steelers start out slow and then start to finally turn it around and squeak their way into the playoffs by the end of the season? It happened many times with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Actually, they got hot last year, didn't they?
I have my worries on the defense and the offense, really, but it's a little too early just to come out and say something is terrible right now.
Well, the defense is terrible until they prove otherwise.
So, I mean, you got to kind of wonder if they're struggling dealing with Keith Butler.
Well, there's many different factors. You got the change from LeBeau to Butler. You got the change from a predominantly 3-4 defense where we're going to move into a 4-3 cover 2. You got a lot of young players playing. You got Boykin in a new system. You got Cortez Allen coming off of injuries. I mean, there's a lot of factors that come into play as why they're playing so poorly, but it doesn't. I mean, the only thing that's going to get them better is playing time. So the early part of this year is going to be shaky. Week 1 against New England, we did a Steelers preseason, not rankings, but predictions of all the games, and I had them beating the Patriots with Garoppolo. They got no shot. I mean, it's going to be a shootout, but if the Patriots put up 60 on this defense, I wouldn't be too surprised.
I don't see 60 points coming, but
over or under 40.
40 points?
How many points Tom Brady puts up on us this Thursday?
I'm going to say under. They're not
You're out of your mind. They're going to have 40 in the first half.
Dude, you're looking at preseason way too much here, dude. You just said before the preseason that this defense was going to be beast. Now you look at some stupid preseason games that they always lose. They're like 2-13 in their last 15 preseasons games.
Yeah. It's not about wins or losses. It's about the players on the field that I've watched.
But they're not on the field. They're on the field for like 5 minutes and then they come off the field.
On offense,
9 of them.
Man,
You just said last game. 9 of them didn't even start.
Last game. The other games they all played, and they played horrible.
They did not play horrible.
A 73% completion percentage for opposing quarterbacks.
And was that the starters, or was it just the entire team?
It was the entire team, and on defense, the starters played more than the offensive starters.
Yeah, not last game, obviously.
Yeah, I'm not even talking about just last game. I'm talking about the whole freaking preseason.
Disregard the last game. That's still 4 games we're talking about, which is a preseason.
But they didn't play the whole game either. You're talking about players that aren't even on this team, and you're worried about a frickin' passing percentage in the preseason.
What happened when
they were 1-3 last year in the preseason? Everyone said they looked terrible. They went 11-5.
What happened when most of our starters played the preseason, that game? What happened?
Ben went straight down the field on offense. On defense, which game?
They got blasted.
Which game? Against Aaron Rodgers? Of course.
No, the
Buffalo.
Yeah, the Buffalo game was the game where we were supposed to play the majority of our team for a while, and didn't they get lit up?
Yeah.
Because that was a little bit that didn't make you look at the defense a little bit and say, wait a minute now.
I said coming into the season the defense isn't going to be exactly as great as at least Jim thinks they're going to be, but I'm not going to sit here and look at one quarter versus the Buffalo Bills and say, oh my God, this defense is terrible.
Okay. Some other people may disagree with you on that one.
I'm sure they do. Obviously they do. They do this every season. The Steelers come out with 0 or 1 wins in the preseason, and everyone thinks they're going to be garbage. And who knows? Maybe they will be, but I've seen it too many times. The Steelers don't care about the preseason, it seems like. Mike Tomlin talks like, oh, we need to do this in the preseason. We need to win these games. He doesn't care if he wins these games or not. He just wants to see these players out there. And he even said it himself. A lot of these players knew they were going to be cut, and they weren't even trying out there, so they cut them. That's pretty much it.
Well, they put up a touchdown and a field goal right off the bat in the first quarter against the Steelers defense in Buffalo, and that was the starters.
That's great.
EJ
one
Manuel
freaking
put a
drive,
freaking
man.
63-yard touchdown pass to Charles Clay.
You can't get a field goal with a touchdown in one drive.
Okay, great point, 47. There was a field goal in there. If your defense lets up field goals, you're a terrible defense.
No, I'm just saying the starting defense has looked terrible.
I mean, the
defense
at points they look great. What was the game where it was the Green Bay game. They looked great at points in that game. After that first drive where Aaron Rodgers took him down the field, they sacked him in the end zone for a safety. They had like 3 or 4 sacks.
They've had 11 sacks through the whole 5 games in the preseason.
Okay.
That sounds like a lot of sacks to me, though.
That's not a lot of sacks in 5 games.
How many sacks did they have in 16 games last year?
It's a little bit
like
over
33. That's the same pace.
It's not good.
They're on
but
pace
that's
to
also
not have a lot
backups
of
getting
sacks.
those sacks too. Who knows, man? You can't go by the preseason at all.
Well, the fact of the matter is it rests with pressure on the quarterback. Are we going to get that pressure because we have holes in our secondary? In my opinion, we have no clear-cut number 1 cornerback.
Or safety.
Good point. No, safety also.
I think the linebackers are the strongest point of this team, and I said that before the preseason even started.
Put Troy through forced retirement. I mean, even though he wasn't stellar back there, he's still a leader.
Forced retirement. It was
Either
he had to go or he was going to be Junior Seau.
I agree, but I'm just saying. I mean, that's all people cried about was for him to retire. I'm happy he did it as a Steeler.
But I'm 33 years old. Troy Polamalu was the best Steeler I've ever seen play.
When did we do our season preview? 2 weeks into the preseason,
couple weeks
3
ago,
weeks.
yeah. Listen, I'm not saying the defense is going to be garbage for the whole year, man. Opinions change on the way teams play. Teams can play poorly at the beginning and play better at the end of the year. So your opinion will change. Yes, they're terrible at the beginning of the year if they're playing terrible, and if they play better at the end of the year, then they're good. That's how sports is. But right now, they're not good. Right now. They are just not good.
Well, I mean, they're definitely having a lot of trouble. Not having a LeBeau around is got to be a killer.
I'm not really that worried about it. I think LeBeau's defense ran stale.
I kind of think it
Hey
did
now.
too, but he still kept it together. At least, I think it, like I said, arguably the best coaching job he did was last year with that patchwork defense.
Now, Dash, do you feel LeBeau's defense ran stale?
Oh, yeah, we said it last season. It was time for LeBeau to go.
Time for him to go.
I mean, it was. It was the end of the road for LeBeau.
So then,
No problem with
You
that.
know what the problem is, too? I'm not
transitioning to Keith Butler should not be an excuse then.
No, it shouldn't.
It's
all.
not transitioning necessarily to Keith Butler. It's transitioning to now Mike Tomlin has his hands on this defense more than before. When Tomlin was hired, he wasn't allowed to do anything about LeBeau. LeBeau stayed. That was part of the deal. He could say that he was allowed to fire LeBeau. He was not allowed to fire LeBeau when he first came here. Now Mike Tomlin will have more say in what goes on the defense.
Hence
so
the
it's not
4-3
changing.
cover, too.
Right, exactly. It's changing defensive schemes. They're completely changing what they do as a defense.
I don't really think we have the defensive line for that, though.
I disagree. I think our D-line and our
Well, I
linebackers
like
are the best part of our team.
Well, I like Tuitt, and I like
Hayward,
Cameron
Tuitt,
Hayward.
McClendon, and McCullers would be a solid D-line if you had to run 4 guys out there.
Does McCullers look good in the preseason?
Yeah, he's a beast. He's a big dude.
I mean, we need that mammoth in the middle to clog up the run. I mean, that's imperative.
I'm not saying he's a beast plays, Gallagher, or Dash. You looked at me funny.
No, I was just thinking of some of the things you said. We argued. You said it was all Mike Tomlin's decision that on LeBeau or not before, and we argued about this hardcore. And now you're saying it wasn't Mike Tomlin's decision.
What, about when he first came to the team?
Yeah.
I never said Tomlin would have been allowed to fire LeBeau when he came
dude.
to the team. I said Tomlin had call over player personnel, not whether or not they were going to fire
See,
LeBeau.
let's not even get into it. I know what you said, but whatever.
You can say what I said,
you also
but I know
said
what
these.
I said because I
You
said
also said these D tackles were terrible at one point.
No, I said
well.
McClendon was terrible. I never said McCullers was terrible. I've been big on McCullers since last year.
Okay, man.
You could go back and listen to the segments we talked about him last year.
Yeah, we will.
I said that the D-line and the linebackers were the best part of the defense. When have I wavered from that this year?
Oh, I'm not saying anything about this, what you said about the defense this year. I just remember your opinions on the D tackles and Tomlin's decision.
McClendon's garbage. I'm not saying McClendon's good, but if you have Tuitt and Hayward on the outside and McCullers and McClendon in the middle, that's not terrible. McClendon's not a nose tackle 3-4 guy like a Casey Hampton. That's where he was bad. He's a get pressure up the middle guy. You change your defense, he plays different. It makes him a different player. I'm still not saying he's good, but he's better in a 4-3 than he is as the nose tackle in a 3-4.
I'll agree with that. I didn't think he was a good nose tackle. I didn't like seeing him in whenever he was our 3-4 nose tackle.
He's not a run stopper by himself. He's not taking on 2 blockers at the same time.
What a 4-3 means, most likely, is Shazier's not going to be in the game, in my opinion,
Well,
correct?
No, they're going to use Shazier on the outside when they go into the 4-3.
Well, then who would be out of the game?
It depends on Jones' side and Dupree's side. Whichever side's playing better, works with the defense better, will get to stay. So Shazier will either shift over to either side, and Timmons will stay in the middle.
Here's a little food for thought for you. If McCullers is this big, massive guy who's going to be that run stopper, you know, could we see us actually go more to a hybrid defense, sort of like in the Cardinals style?
I mean, maybe, but McCullers wears down a little bit as the game goes through, and he still needs to work on staying lower because he's a real tall guy.
Right.
So players get under him and move him out of the way. If he can work on those fundamentals, but right now he's still not, going to play at an elite level or even a true number 1 level.
I personally like the hybrid defense. I like what Arizona was doing down there.
Arizona won with defense by committee last year. I mean, they didn't have any one great player making great plays. They played well as a team. They played well in a scheme, and that's what the Steelers need to do to have success this year.
Believe that.
We need Cam Hayward to get some sacks.
We need quarterback pressure.
We need Jarvis Jones to get some sacks.
Believe it. We need a lot of people to get sacks. But we'll get back to you here in a couple days. We're going to do our Steelers preview show, so keep looking out for that. Fans, you can follow us on Twitter at bet_the_spread. You can follow me on Twitter at betjimtowin. If you agree or disagree with what we have to say, let us know. Check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/betthespread. Keep coming back to YouTube. Keep clicking subscribe. Here we go, Steelers.